Good afternoon, friends. Thank you for joining us today. I've been super excited about this conversation. These are some things that we are actually thinking about here at Hinge. I know you guys are too. Anything leadership, team, staff related has been a top of mind for us all forever, actually. I know we talk about the last 5 years and the impact since COVID, but frankly, this is not a new conversation. We've been having it my whole career, 39 years now in the industry, and things are more difficult, but we have some very practical conversations to have with you guys today, which I really, really love. And now I'm super excited to introduce Wei-Li Chong. Wei-Li is a person that I have known and admired for a very long time. And not only is he a great thought leader in the industry, has had an incredible career, and has changed my perception of how to think about teaming, and I hope he does yours. But my favorite thing about Wei-Li is that he is an amazing human being and one of my very favorite people. So thank you for joining us, Wei-Li.
Oh my gosh, Kathy, thank you so much for that introduction. It's amazing to be with you. It's always great to be in the same space as you.
Thank you very much. Well, I know a good bit about you, but I don't think that our guests, maybe some of them had the benefit of hearing you at our Shift conference last year in Santa Barbara, which was thrilling. But for those who did not, could you just tell us a bit about your background and the work that you've done in the industry?
Absolutely. So I started in multi-unit in retail. So I am kind of a all over big box, from Macy's, think of Macy's, to specialty retail stores like Ann Taylor and Loft, and was always in businesses that had large hourly employees that worked in multiple locations. My career started in human resources, not traditional HR, much more focused around researching why does one location outperform another when the product's pretty much the same. And it's really what got me really curious about leadership, and worked in retail until KinderCare called, and Tom Wyatt was the CEO at the time. He came from retail, and I think a lot of people know it was a tough business at the time from a brand reputation and from a financial performance standpoint. They were really on 14 quarters of consecutive decline. So if you think about how large they were, 1,500 locations, 30,000 employees in distress. And the short story is we turned the business around, 25 plus quarters of growth, at a lot of value. But to me, what I'm most proud of is how the employees felt. They went from feeling burnt out and underappreciated with high turnover. We literally cut the turnover in half and built an environment that people were truly proud of to be part of the brand. I'll never forget being at the Macy conference, and a center director came up to me and said, I've been coming to Macy for 10 years as a participant. This is the first year that I'm wearing something with the KinderCare logo because I'm so proud of what we're doing for our teams and our teachers. And so that marriage between what we did for our teams and building our culture to the way that the company performed is truly something I'm proud of. When I left, I joined a company called Mind Gym, and it's a behavioral science company that does a lot of training, and got exposure to a lot of the Fortune 50. I tell the story often. I was in Seattle for a day, and we met with Microsoft, Amazon, and Starbucks. And I thought to myself, well, that's pretty neat to be with a company with those types of organizations. And the thing I learned, Kathy, is they all ask the same questions that we ask in our world of ECE around how do we build high-performing teams, and we're struggling with these relationships between managers and their employees. How do we lead in a way that's more inspiring? And that honestly inspired me to start my own business called Win, and it's really helping businesses find that intersection between culture and performance I think too many companies like the idea of finding great culture, but it's sort of this soft HR driven thing. And when the pressure's on to perform, it quickly falls by the wayside, and you're really pushing these metrics, hard numbers driven by finance, and then you start burning employees out. So I spent a lot of passion now finding that intersection, and actually with your help and being with Shift, I've met some amazing people, and I continue to work at Win, and we're doing some amazing work across industries. But I also joined Otter Learning as their CEO, and am just so proud to be back in the ECE world, doing kind of a rebuild around the things that we believe in so much around culture and performance. So thrilled to be back in the industry as well.
Well, nothing makes me happier. We knew that we would get you back at some point. You have some fans here in our chat, so I'll let you take a look at that later. And I'm not surprised. I agree. So much great work was done at KinderCare. And I want to get back to the balance between leadership and productivity. But before I do that, I mentioned a little bit about what we hear in the CE over years and years as it relates to teams, and that being the number one struggle, our whole, as far as I know, in the industry. But what do you feel current research shows us about where teams are now? Are there new trends? Are we stable? What are you seeing?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you started off and said, things that are changing. I'd say there's three themes I would have everybody think about. And by the way, Deanna, thank you. You're very, very kind, and we should find time to reconnect. So thank you for your comments in the chat. One is there is a growing gap between management and leadership and the people actually doing the work. And that's driven by a lot of things, whether it's the shift in values of people and employees. A day doesn't go by when I hear leaders say, well, it's not like when I worked, right? Can't we just get people to do their jobs? Well, things have shifted a lot. So one, the gap is growing. Two, it was interesting. I think the Surgeon General just last year define well-being as a national crisis, with workplace being a huge proponent for the issues that people are feeling. Loneliness is a huge issue right now, and we know if you study loneliness, it is a precursor to many challenges related to an individual's health. So that's something that is happening across all industries. I think often people talk about hybrid working and how it feels to be alone in your home. I honestly, Kathy, I've always thought about what it feels like to be a teacher, being in a classroom and driving ratios with children, but not having that connection with their team. So I think loneliness is very real. And the statistics right now is we are on a 10-year low around how it feels to be an employee and how it feels to be at work. So when we think about the percentage, and I'm going to share more in a bit, but when you think about an employee's connection to the company that they work for and how they feel in terms of their support and their ability to bring their best, we are on a 10-year low, which creates a huge challenge when you think about, as a leadership team, how do I think about performance growth, and how do I think about the goals that I have when human capital and people is a huge part of that formula.
So interesting. I'm going to be very interested to learn more about what created that, and more importantly, where do we go from here, right? Could you talk about my favorite subject, which is, I see a lot of phenomenal leaders. I think they're very inspiring people. Obviously, we have a mission-based work that we all do. So I find that the leadership inspiration piece very often is there. What I don't always see is that conversion or measurement against goals and outcomes. So talk about the practicality and the conversion from an inspiring leader to getting the work done and doing it very well and meeting goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think so often when we talk about leadership, you think about people that have been in the world that are huge world or national figures, right? And we put this idea of leadership on a pedestal of something that's just aspirational that only a few people can get. But when I talk about most people, the first thing I ask them is, I want you to think about the best leader you've ever worked for in your career, right? And everybody on this call, I want you to think about who that person is. And I want you to have that mental picture. And then I want you to think about, why did you think about that individual first? And I've asked this question to many, many people. And the majority of the time, Kathy, people describe the best leader they've ever had as somebody that believed in them, somebody that challenged them, somebody that enabled them to achieve things that they never thought were possible. But it was all about that ability to do something that you actually may not have thought that you could do yourself, right? And I want everybody to think about that, because the easy question is, when you think about your teams, if you were to ask them that, how many people are thinking about you as a leader? It's as simple as that. And then we can help you think through, how do you create those conditions? Now, to your point, what's the connection? The most conservative research that I have found around the difference between around productivity, around working for your best leader, right? Bringing out your best and so forth, is a 14% productivity difference. So if you think about how you felt working for that individual, the research says you put in 14% more effort in everything that you did working for that individual than anybody else. And I know, Kathy, we're going to have a poll, and I'm going to ask a question for it, and then I'm going to help you understand, okay, 14%, well, how much of that are you getting from your team? And what percentage do you have of everybody else on your team? And how does that translate to your financial performance? Because if you can make that connection and see that path, what does a 14% improvement on your financial performance look like for you? What does 14% improvement on utilization, occupancy, enrollment do for you? That's the hard science, Kathy, that I help people really make that connection.
You just did such a beautiful thing, because I completely forgot about that poll, Wei-Li, and it is so important. So that's the mark of a good leader right there, you guys. He just completely prompted me, and I'll just go ahead and say that I completely forgot that. So if I could get my team to launch the poll. So you guys will notice over to the right of your screen the poll icon, but you should see it pop up on your screen. And here's what we were thinking that would be interesting to get you guys engaged, because I'd really like for you, as we go through our conversation, to put your comments in the chat and also send us questions in the Q&A. We would love to have those. But what percent of your team consistently gives you high discretionary effort? Meaning they consistently go above and beyond the norm at work. So you guys know who they are. We always wish we would have a team full of them. I know that I have a great example I want Wei-Li to talk about in a bit. But as you think about your team, how do you feel about how they go above and beyond? So I'll pitch back to you, Wei-Li. What do these results say to you?
Yeah, I'm kind of writing down the numbers. It's really interesting. So, Kathy, when I talk to people and I say, what percentage of your team's going above and beyond? It's funny. Most of them say half, 3/4. Like I have good people, right? I like the people that I work with. And I think that's a natural feeling of subjectively, I like the people on my team. And there tends to be a big difference between how you feel about the people and how much effort they may be putting into your business. So for the 11 responses, 50 to 75%, and the 3 over 75%, if you have that, you are in thin air. That is outstanding. That's really, really great. The piece for me is the research would say that you're in a very small percentage of the overall US workforce. That's the piece I want you to think about. So I'm not challenging. I hope you have that. And I hope you are performing in a way that is leveraging them to be best in your communities in a great way. The research is, and it's been very consistent actually for the last 20 some years, is that when you look across industry and you look at the US workforce, the majority of companies have around 30% or less their employees consistently going above and beyond. So if you think about, this is about millions of data points around employees and how they're feeling and their effort. About a third of the US workforce are going consistently above and beyond. So I want everybody on this call, I want you to really think about that. And I want you to really think about the people on your head and be very deliberate around above and beyond. They're coming up with ideas. They are leaning in and supporting other people when they're not asked to do so. They are challenging status quo. Your families are consistently giving you experience or like really feeling and advocating for these people that are just wildly making an impact for the children. That's really above and beyond. So in the US, if a third of employees are going above and beyond, it really means about 2/3 of your team are not, right? It's the easiest way to think about that. And I break that out into 30-70. Let's say out of every 10 employees you have, 3 of them you would love to clone. They are just doing amazing work. They are 14% minimally more productive than anybody else. What the research says, and I call those green employees, like they're just off and running. Now let's talk about the 70%. 5 of those employees, which I say are your orange employees, I describe those as paycheck collectors. They're never doing anything bad, but they're not necessarily going above and beyond. They could be great to work with, but they're there to just simply do their job and to go home. They're not going to go above and beyond. So that's 50% of a normal average company, 5 out of 10. And then there's 2 people, 20%, 2 people out of every 10. I call these red employees. They're actively working against you. So the 2 might look like the employee after your team meeting. They're the ones pulling people aside and say, oh my gosh, can you believe that they would even say that? Do they understand what's happening here? They want us, they never appreciate us. They just want us to be doing more. This is just wild. I can't believe that. And they're making these comments to negate any perspective and thoughts that you have as a leader. Now, the interesting thing is, and this has been proven out across every company that I've worked for and every company that I've helped. Your green employees, they tend to tell you, I'm fine. Like, I know there's noise in our company, but I'm fine. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do my job. I love what you're doing. I'm going to help you be successful. The red employees, they're constantly recruiting other people to be red. And they're targeting your orange employees. So they're targeting the 50% of your staff to say, come on, like, Kathy, can you believe that they would say that? Like, what are you doing? Like, let's go to lunch. Let's talk about this. Because they want you to move from orange to red. Because they want to control the situation. So for a lot of the people on this call who say, I have less than 50%, I want you to think about your team in those 3 buckets and what's happening within those 3 buckets. For the few that are like, man, we're crushing it, we've got an amazing team going above and beyond, then you have a different challenge, which is about retaining and creating an environment where they're celebrated and actually figuring out how to set goals to really maximize the impact of a world-class team. But for the majority of us, it's really about making sense of, how do I actually target the 50% of orange employees and inspire them to be green? Because for every orange employee that you inspire to be green, that's 14% more productivity than you're getting today.
I love that. I love that you introduced that to us at Shift, and it was such a good way to think about it. One of the things I want to pull out a little bit that you said was that green employees challenge the status quo. So I think a lot of times we think about our amazing employees being the ones that do what we say and follow the rules and don't give us a hard time. Maybe they take a little initiative, but talk a little bit more about the value of challenging the status quo. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I sometimes find the green employees are often the most difficult to manage because they are pushing the boundaries and they're saying, listen, Kathy, like, we can do better, or have you thought about this? And you're kind of like, slow down. I appreciate it, but man, we've got a lot to do and we've got these things going on. But they're always challenging the status quo, right? So the key to managing a green employee is to, and this is a little bit of the tips, and I'm going to size up the tips because I want everybody on this call to take that step to be the best leader anybody has ever had. But a lot of it is aligning your green employees to the focus of your company and understanding what's truly important. One of the things I found in ECE is we're just incredibly busy. There's just the best plans that are out there and a lot of information and a lot of things that you're making sense of. And then your day hits and people are calling out and a parent's upset, or there's an issue that's happening, or maybe you're working through a licensing issue, and all those things tend to distract you from your plans. Your green employees are your best advocate if you can help them focus in the best way. So we talk a lot about what's the difference between urgent and important, and how do we make sure we're honoring your ability to focus on what's urgent. And if you can get your green employees into that category and protect their time to do that, you're off to the races.
Love that. Love that. You talked to us about green, orange, and red employees at Shift, and I've heard so many amazing comments from people. I think that Mia had a question about whether there was a chart or visual you could share with those categories or labels, but I'm sure that would lend itself to a lot of information and strategy building. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up after this call, Kathy, and make sure everybody has visuals. There's a number of things that we highlighted at the Shift conference that might be helpful to people. But Mia, the thing that I would help you think about in terms of a visual is just to, and you can draw this yourself. I would literally draw 10 people. And as silly as that sounds, it's going to help you think about your team, right? And then I would draw a line after 3 people and just mark them as green. I would mark off 5 people in the middle, mark them as orange, and then I would have 2 people and mark them as red. And that's your 3-5-2. So we talk a lot about 3-5-2. How do we observe the behaviors that are happening in the organization to understand who's green, orange, and red? We all have them, right? Now, this is different from your belief in talent and performance and all those things. But it's about having the conversation so that you can start, maybe put initials next to green, right? How do you surround yourself with those? How do you actually ask them questions? How do you really surround yourself by prioritizing things that are going to help them feel really connected? And then your goal, Mia, is look at your 5 and really think about how to move them to green. So practical example, at KinderCare, when we first started, I actually brought scientists in to tell me what our company looked like. We were 1-to-1 when I started, 1 green to every 1 red. And we had 8 people that were on the sideline paycheck collectors. That's why we had such high turnover. They're just people that are coming and going because we were a big company. They just came and left. We had 1 green person for 1 red. So it was completely toxic because the red were controlling everything that was happening. When we started to shift, and a couple people on this call were part of that process, so I'm sure they can tell their own stories. The data told me when we transformed, we were 14-to-1. So the outside researchers came in and said, Wei-Li, you have 14 green employees to every 1 red. So we basically gave all of our orange employees a reason to lean in and give us more than they were willing to give before. And we were enrolling 4 times the industry average. We were like, all those things were happening in a way that was moving across 1,500 locations, which was pretty exciting.
Amazing. When you say, we've got another good question, but I want to ask you something first. When you say that most leaders heavily focus on the red employees and don't quite work on getting the oranges to the green or incentivizing the green, is that typical?
Yeah, Kathy, it's such a great point. So all companies make the mistake of spending too much time on the red. So leaders with your HR teams, constant conversations, what do we do, all that kind of stuff. We're going to manage them. Maybe you get to a point and really end their employment. Guess what happens? Another red employee pops up, right? And there's no ROI on performance improvement. You're literally plugging holes and another hole opens up and there's just water coming at you. So it can feel exhausting as a leader to distort your time that way. What we did at KinderCare is we spent all of our time on green. Not all, say 80 to 85% on green. We pointed it out, we created clarity, we celebrated them, and we inspired our orange employees to give it. And here's what happened. A lot of the red employees self-selected out. They said, you know what, like, I can't recruit in this place. I literally had employees sending me messages 6 months later that said, you know what, I didn't realize how toxic I was. I'm so much happier where I am. I just wanted to let you know I'm looking back and realizing that I needed to leave the company. Like, that was a red employee that literally took the time to send me a note so a lot of them don't even realize that they're at that place. But if you focus on green, build that culture, and it impacts your performance, now you're building a high performance organization.
Love that. Question that I think someone asked a version of the same question that I had. Do we anecdotally know who our red, orange, and green employees are, or are they measured? We're going to re-gift the reds. We had that comment. I thought that was great. Self-select out was also a great term. But do we anecdotally know, or do we have measurement tools? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so the tool I used when I was at KinderCare was Gallup. Their engagement. Now, they're really expensive, candidly, but I think that they have incredible science. One of the things I did, if people are interested, when I created WIN, I created a diagnostic to help companies understand that. The challenge that I found with a lot of the human capital surveys out there is that like engagement surveys, Culture Amp, Gallup engagement, all the great tools, but they tend to measure sentiment. How are employees feeling at the time? So it's like this moment in time, and it's a bit soft for me. We built a diagnostic that helps companies understand how optimized your workforce is. So it's rooted in discretionary effort. How much of that are you getting? And it's driven off of three things. One, how well can an employee articulate what matters most in a company? KPIs, strategic priorities, what the company stands for, and whether or not I understand my job and how it connects to that. So that's what I call organization synergy. The second one is leadership habits, right? We all know that a culture is based on what people experience every day within their manager, so their school or their director and so forth. So we want to understand what are the habits around that leader that's creating the environment, and how do you feel about that? And the third one is, which most people focus on, and it's the least heavy area of our diagnostic, which is people practices. This is the HR thing. Does HR have standards of excellence around career pathing, pay, total rewards, the things that you need to represent yourself as a company around the things you care about related to people? How well do you actually showcase those things? Onboarding is a good example. Everybody talks about recruiting great talent. Most companies I find fail at onboarding, which tells a new employee immediately how they feel to be an employee in that company. So if you're interested in a diagnostic tool, I'm sure we'll send you some information about that. But we're happy to help put a metric, and based on that culture metric, we align that with the most important performance metric. So if it's utilization is a good one for us, imagine if using these statistics, 33% feel like they're getting a third. So your culture might be not optimized. If your utilization is in your schools are, say, you're 50% utilized, or occupancy 60%, you've got a lot of opportunity to enroll. It's going to be really, really hard when you only have a very small percentage of people leaning in and giving that. So we need to help you think about getting the majority of your staff in that school excited about why it's important to have a full school. And that's where we're spending a lot of time.
Right. There's a chapter in my book about that, how to explain to teachers why it's good for them that they have a full classroom. A couple of questions, and I want us to get really into some practical strategies, because I would love for this group to walk away with a thing or a few things that they can implement immediately. I've heard a version of this phrase that someone is asking about, Juliet, which is that if an employee performs 80% of the job that you want them to do, then can you just live with the other 20%? Do you think that that's a good rule of thumb? Is that a good way to think about performance?
Yeah, Julie, it is. I think I could take that in a number of different ways. One is I find that, and the data shows that less than 60% of U.S. workers, when asked, I know what's expected of me at work, over close to 60% cannot strongly agree to that statement. So I cannot strongly agree to a statement that says, I know what's expected of me at work. Like, think about that for a second. That's the majority of people.
Wow.
So when I think about the 80-20, where most companies miss is clarity in role, right? So one is you've got to be super clear, right? If you go back and read your job description that you may post to recruit, most of those things aren't really clear. That's where I'm helping a lot of people. So clarity is critical. And then it's green, orange, red. So 80-20 really might feel like an orange employee, depending on what they're actually doing. What I find, if they're super clear around what we expect of them and how they connect to your goal, then I want people literally giving 110, 120%. And those green employees will never tell you they're burning out. They just don't, because they tell you, I love what we're doing. I'm making an impact. I feel like I'm in the flow. I'm in the zone. Like, we're really crushing it. and that the energy that they create actually feeds other people. So 80-20 might be okay. Sounds like orange to me.
Yeah.
I'd go for 120.
Yeah, love that. There's an orange. I think that we're going to get into the next questions with where I would like to take this next, which is practical ways that we talked about. Your main goal, if I'm hearing you correctly, is to move your orange team, which is half of your team. Another question, I think that what you're saying is out of every 10 people, most companies will have three green?
3 green, that's right.
3 green, 5 orange, 2 red. Most companies. Although you gave us the example of what you guys were able to accomplish at KinderCare, which greatly moved that. So a very well-led company can look differently, but the average company would look like that, right? What practical ways can leaders work with their teams to move the oranges to green? And I just have to pause right there and say what a mind shift that is for me, because again, I hear a lot of focus on the reds. So the reds are getting all the attention when the self-select out theory seems to work really well, or makes sense to me that you would focus on moving the orange to the red. So what are the practical ways that we put that in motion?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you 3 things that I think I'm going to say them and people are going to be like, really? That's it? And I will tell you, they can be profound in your business if you focus on these things. And I'll speak from a perspective of just joining Otter. So I am in the trenches with you in creating environments and so forth. And, Otter is a company that was founded by 2 people Kathy knows very well. But there was a disconnect between what they wanted and how the business was operating. And we are going through the exact same things that I'm going to share with you, and they're difficult. And I'm going to give you examples of why these are meaningful and they will change things very, very quickly. So the first one we talked about, which is determining what metrics are most important to your business and how you rally people to care about it. So that's a 2-piece. And they're one, what's the most important metric? What's the number 1 metric that defines your organization? Can you get a short view? What I've experienced in this industry and most industry, you get a report at the end of the week, people's eyes glaze over. Most of the people in our industry didn't get in this industry because they like being Excel and they like financial stuff, right? But we as leaders tend to choke everybody with all sorts of reports, right? So we did an amazing amount of work to simplify, to get our metrics down to a few things. And we had a leader in Otter that challenged. Like, I thought we cared about culture. We talked about culture, but it feels like we're just spending too much time on metrics and that sort of thing. And that told me where they were, right? It is a precursor for a strong culture to have clarity in metrics. Then the goal as a leader is to inspire your teams around why those metrics are important, how they connect to those metrics to move the needle. Everybody wants to be part of winning. They want to understand their role is important. So metrics start there. So ask yourself, do you have clarity around what's most important? And am I inspiring people to understand why those metrics are important? Kathy probably hit on, right? Occupancy. I haven't yet to meet somebody that's really able to articulate why occupancy matters in a way that would inspire me. We are focused on that. So that's one practical thing that I would help you focus on. 2, as a leader for everybody on this call, how do you build followership? So as you think about your leadership and you think about the things that you're saying on a regular basis, how well do you know that people are actually following you? And you know that by how well you make sense of the things that are important to you. So my thought too, when you think about building followership, how well are you telling your story? Why are you where you are today? What were the moments in your career that got you to where you are today? Why are you an ECE? Are you inspired by what we're trying to do in this industry? And why would somebody actually follow you? I feel like too many leaders move to what I need you to do for this company, what I need you to do this week, this month, this year, and you're actually creating a gap. People want to work for people that they know that they aspire to be, have aligned values, really see you as somebody that you can learn from. All of those things are human behavior elements that I see leaders overlooking every day. So take a moment and think about what's your authentic story and start to think about how you can actually curate a narrative to you talk about when you hire, onboard, when you talk about priorities and so forth around why these things are meaningful to you, and make sure you're thinking about followership. And then the third one is think about how you're building a sense of belonging. I talked at the beginning, Kathy, around it is a huge issue. It is very lonely to be a teacher. It's incredible lonely to be a director in a center where everybody wants something from you. So think about what it means to create a sense of belonging, meaning that they are telling the story at night to their friends and family that they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. That's what you're trying to drive. Most companies aren't doing that. And Kathy, in this fragmented business that we're in, right? If you have a few schools, an advantage for you is to help directors and teachers and so forth understand the community that they're a part of. If you do that, it truly helps well-being. It truly helps people feel like they're part of a community. And that is a precursor to help people think about their discretionary effort and so forth. So it seems so odd, but these are very strong business behavioral things that drive discretionary effort. Think about the 14% productivity improvement that you would want in your center.
I really like those, and they're actually I like the balance between the metrics and the clarity around those with the authentic story. Stories are incredibly powerful, and then a sense of belonging, which I think natural leaders are just really good at. Number 2 and number 3, and maybe number 3. But really like those. Thank you for sharing that. Good question about in what ways. So, well, let me ask the first one first. Did that answer the question, what actions you attribute to moving orange to green? Is it those 3?
Those 3 will go a long way, and it takes a lot of discipline to think them through. So I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I'll have a meeting tomorrow and we'll talk it through. It really takes a lot of time to be able to do that. I found in KinderCare, some of the leaders that we've had, it's taking them over a year to actually articulate authentic leadership to build followership. So it's a journey, right? And so these are things that leaders need to really understand how it works. And Kathy, you pointed out, you can move the needle. Just because the average company has 3 out of 10 is a huge opportunity for the people on this call to say, if I can just change that, you're going to attract better talent, you're going to get more out of your employees, and you're going to grow, which is exactly what KinderCare was able to do. I think one point I was looking at, Mia asked, I think, a really great question, which is some people just aren't looking to grow and they're content with being orange. I want to differentiate for the group right now. There's a difference between growing to the next level and just doing your job. Orange and green, to me, right now, has nothing to do with career growth. It's actually how much are you getting out of them in their job today. So if you have some employees that are completely content being a paycheck collector and not giving anything more than the bare minimum, and you can afford that, then that's fine. Your business will transform when you are able to move a good percentage of your orange employees to green. And that's just in their job today. So I thought that was a great question that I want to clarify, Kathy, around big difference, growth, potential, career pathing. I really want everybody to know right now I'm just talking about driving a high performing team that is dedicated to your mission, that will stay with you longer to help you have the greatest impact on your community.
Right. We'll have to bring you back for those other completely separate subjects. Wei-Li, talk a little bit, and you guys pop your questions in. We've got about 10 more minutes, and I hope that you will use up as much of Wei-Li's brain space as possible, because it's amazing. How do you celebrate your green employees? Is there a focus on celebrating the green? Is that one of the strategies to move orange to green?
Great question. So I'll tell you 2 quick stories. At KinderCare, our great employees, we're looking for schools that were doing it right. Out of 1,500 locations, we found 11. That's it, 11. And Kathy, we put them on a pedestal. So the quick answer is you should celebrate them in incredible ways. So one is it should be individualized. So you should know what is most important to that employee, and you should bring that thing to life. And 2, it needs to be something that everybody else in your company looks at and says, wow, that was incredible. Maybe I could do that. So an example is, and this was at KinderCare, we would go out of our way to talk to family members, to learn about people, to do these things. We had a director that came from a large family, and her family meant the world to her. She would talk about all of her grandkids and this and that, and she became one of our fastest growing schools. So we arranged to have her entire family come in on a vacation paid for by the company at a location, so that school director could really, be with her entire extended family. And she couldn't believe that's what we did, that we knew what was the most important thing to her, right? So, and I say that, and everybody on this call may be like, oh, well, that must have been expensive. KinderCare is a big company. We're doing the same thing at Otter because it pays back in spades. It needs to be individualized, because what you're trying to do is, our business is all about individualization. Do you know your parents? Do you know your teachers? Do you know the little things that they care about? And if you as a company start to celebrate people in those individualized ways, what you're going to find is those employees are going to start caring about the details about your families. Is it your first child here? Is it your 4th child? What's a good day? What's a bad day? Are you struggling at home? And you're going to start building those relationships that really, really matter.
I love the individualization of that. That takes a real commitment to getting to know your people as people, and not thinking about everyone in the same way. So I love that. I don't know what I was a level 5 at KinderCare means. What does that mean?
So Deanna, no. So part of this scorecard that I talked about, the metrics that truly matter around the business, we actually used a process that there were 6 levels in the company. Level 5, Deanna is running I don't know if it's a school or a market, Deanna. I'd love to know more. But she's in thin air. It means that she has a ton of green employees, and families, when we ask them the question, I can't imagine a world without my KinderCare center in Deanna's world, they are saying, I absolutely can't imagine a world without that center. The emotional connection she has with her families are amazing. So that's what a level 5 center looks like at KinderCare.
I love that. That's fantastic. We also have apparently a Hinge employee wondering what they do if they're red. So,
So I'm looking for that. Is it
That would be Alec asking if you're a red, what do you do? He's being funny. He is not a red. Probably, but begs a good question. I would imagine most reds don't believe that they're reds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like the employee that called me and said, I didn't realize. And I feel so much better working in an environment. I didn't realize how toxic it was. It was bad for me.
Right.
Like a lot of them don't know. There was another point around once the red employees are identified, should they be removed if they don't self-select out? Sometimes, like for me, it's all about your discretionary time. How are you spending your time? If they are a problem, they continue to be a problem, you should move them out. But you need to spend the majority of your time on orange converting, or green converting orange to green. Right? So move those red out, and then they'll start self-selecting out and all those pieces. So think about that. But yeah, I think the core when you think about red is leaders spend way too much time there.
Right. Yeah. So what we're not saying is that we don't mentor and work with our reds. We just say that we don't need to ignore our greens because they're amazing, and we don't need to just be happy enough with our oranges. Our goal is to move as many oranges to green as possible. Do what you need to with the reds, and then if you need to make that choice for them, then that's the best path, and that needs to happen too. Would you say that?
That's exactly right.
Right.
If you're looking to build a high performing culture, that's exactly what you want to do.
Right. Okay. Any final questions for you guys? We could probably take one more. Coach up or coach out. I love that. That's very good. You sure do have some people who have an amazing experience at KinderCare, and I really love that. I certainly hear that all across the industry about the work that you and other team members did there. Okay, we must have done a really good job. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. Do you have anything that you'd like to add that we didn't cover, that I didn't ask, that?
For me, one, I guess, Kathy, let me follow up with you after this call, because I'll put together a couple slides that we want to send out to everybody in this group.
Right.
If you're interested in the diagnostic or us to think about supporting you, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or check out our website at win.consulting. And I would be remiss, Kathy, if I didn't say, one, I'm thrilled to be back in ECE. And I hope everybody checks us out at Otter Learning as well. We're doing some amazing things.
Yeah, if I could get Kim to pop your, what would you like for them to go to Win website?
Yep. So it's win.consulting. That's all you need to put in there. You'll go to our website or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect with you there as well.
Yeah, amazing. I just want to keep you for myself so I can learn more for my team. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I love that we started this conversation by talking about outside of industry experiences. And I feel like that you did an amazing job bringing those concepts into our industry. And I appreciate your time to share that with this community. So thank you for that. Greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, Kathy. I'll do anything for you. So I appreciate the invite to be on this webinar, and I'll look forward to seeing you again.
You guys will see Wei-Li again.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Take care, everyone.